Pio.
Tat Wizard.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling. Can I curse?
You can do whatever you want to do.
Feeling fucking great, bro.
That's awesome. That's all. Don't get naked. Just putting that out there.
No, man,
I
that's
said whatever
Queen's
you want to
Flips.
do. That is Queen's Flip.
Queen's Flip. That's not
shout
me.
to Queen's Flip. He gave us some promo by interrupting us, and we're getting a chance to start over now.
Yeah.
So this is fnTECHIES. And fnTECHIES is a podcast about the world as we know it, and everybody is practically a techie now. But some people are actually techies.
Right.
fnTECHIES, FN means function. And really the name of this show is Functioning Techies, because everybody now is a functioning techie, kind of like a functioning alcoholic, right?
I like it.
But if you look on any keyboard, FN stands for function. So
Yeah.
it kind of
It's good. I like it.
I'm explaining it because, you know, you're the first person. This is the first episode, so I want to get all the information out there. Pio, how you feeling? You're good. We already covered that.
I'm effing great. I'm functioning great.
You're functioning great.
Functioning great.
You just gave me, that's a great one. That's a great one. First, real quick, let me do some shout outs. Shout out to All the Best I, Trooper Monroe. That's my hometown. So I just want to let people know. And I always love those people. And we're sponsored today by Lit Digital DJs and the Hot 97 Studios.
All right.
Okay.
Isn't that some dude Flex or something?
Yeah,
Funky Flex?
He's
Funk Flex?
He's a bit of a kingpin. Some
Yeah.
people that are smaller like to say Funky Flex.
I've heard of him.
Yes, of course.
I love Flex.
Of course.
Flex is,
you know.
He's an effing car guy.
He is a
functioning
super functioning car guy.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But he gets into tech too. He and I had some tech
he is so digital.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Indeed. So Pio, I asked you to be on my show today because for two reasons. One, first and foremost, you're an audiophile.
Yeah.
You are heavy into the audiophilia. Like that's your thing. Like that's your passion.
Yes.
And that is essentially a techie type thing. So I definitely wanted to talk to you about that. And then the other thing was, of course, because you're the PD of Hot 97, so you have insight on certain things that could relate to what we're going to talk about.
Awesome.
All right. So let's get started.
All
right. Do you know what a techie is?
I mean, a person that is very involved with technology and a person that is a connoisseur of certain things. There's certain levels.
Yes.
There are the novice levels and the layman level that they could give three craps about, you know, stuff. And then there's people like you that are like, we're talking about virtual reality before virtual reality was cool. And I don't know if that trend has passed or whatever, but you and I were talking about that before.
Yeah. Before it even got to be a thing.
Yeah. So
it hasn't passed per se. I feel like a lot of technology nowadays is in a place where it's figuring out how it's going to be consumed by the consumer.
Well, think about FaceTime, and you know, if you watch the old Star Trek and stuff like that, I mean, Star Wars, they were doing FaceTime, like, you know, like Leia sent Obi-Wan basically a FaceTime message. It's just, you know.
It was a hologram FaceTime.
Right. So it's just how there was no technology at the time. But you know how they say science fiction eventually becomes science reality. So
correct.
There's a lot of stuff. And I think virtual reality is there, that it's great tech that is ahead of its time. And like the pieces of equipment to consume and to use it aren't quite there. Like, you know, hanging around with those glasses.
Right, It's not going to be conducive to your average living.
When Geico makes fun of a kid using, you know
it's overblown and out the space. Yeah,
right.
I feel like where it's going to go is more. Virtual reality is probably going to stay in an entertainment-based situation and educational, right, for training and things like that. Our day-to-day is going to come down to AR, which is augmented reality, which is the layers of graphics on top of what you're actually seeing. And to reference that Minority Report is probably how we're going to experience that. Walking into an airport, read your iris, knows who you are, sells you things that only you can see in an augmented way. The problem with that, or not problem, but the issue is, even in Minority Report, it takes some type of device within us to do that. And a lot of times it's suggested to be an implant situation. Like,
yeah, but face recognition is...
No, face recognition is happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's on your phone.
Right. But more so, like, all right, so taking Minority Report, right?
Yeah.
It's what I'm saying is more like it's reading your eye. It's not just reading who you are. It's reading everything about you. It's reading what you do online.
It's Googling you.
It's Googling you as you're walking. It's
reading your eye. Yeah.
And giving you only what you want.
You know, cell technology was available for decades. It was just a military technology. I wonder what, I wonder what military technology from 10 years ago will be available to us in the next few years.
Yeah, that is an exciting thought.
And what you're saying, heaven knows what's out there. I guess today we're so connected and everybody, like the flow of information is so incredibly instantaneous that I guess you can't really hide too much, and people like to leak stuff and whatever, but there has to be tech that's just way out of our...
Yes. And I've been pushing something, and this is something I had set up for later, but we're getting into it. I've been pushing STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's what they're trying to push onto the kids now for the future, because we're getting into a space that no matter what job you want to do, you're going to need a level of technology or a level of math or science or whatever in order to do that. Even to be a trash man at some point, they're going to figure out how to, the trash truck is going to have a antimatter or something and disintegrate the trash right there. So, but you're going to have to know, in order not to blow up the block, how to operate that in a very scientific way. Right.
Like you can't put foil in a microwave.
Right. And in mechanics in cars, like they're becoming way more tech involved, influenced.
I remember when I was a kid and the computer was just being introduced to the car, right? So this was in the 80s, and I remember my dad and my grandfather and stuff, effing computers, and like, we don't need no, And now it's, again, it's the tech that was, I mean, that's where it starts, right? But, before it was more for the emissions controls and whatever. But now we expect for our cars to do things that just couldn't happen.
Right.
I mean, look at the Flex. We were talking about Flex. Look at the cars that he loves and he's passionate about.
Right.
Like you'd never find a computer in a 67 Chevelle or whatever. But
interesting enough, he recently debuted a car at SEMA that on the outside looked like a 69 Hellcat, but on the inside was every bit of what a car is today. And it would be an interesting thing, and it was well received, and everybody loved it. I thought it was fire. It would be interesting to see the old body types on the new cars to give us that.
Well, I have a buddy in LA that he gets he used to, I don't know how many he's done, but the old, the cool looking Corvette, exterior, and drop in, a high-tech engine with good suspension and the right brakes.
Do you feel like that's because we've grown so accustomed to how we live in this technology world that we can't now enjoy anything that's not tech infused? Like,
no, I mean, I think it's it's just just look at tires. The tires that are on cars. It's if this might be a bold and inaccurate statement, but I would wager to say that you get a good, street tire today with today's technology is probably a lot better than some of the tires that people were racing on, several decades ago. See what I'm saying? So
the quality is better.
The quality of the tech, the R&D that's gone into this stuff. If you've ever driven, a 60s muscle car, I mean, they're great in a straight line, but when he hit those brakes, and if they're not disc and they're drum brakes, and for, if you're not over a certain age, and you're like, drum brake stuff, is that? Google it. It's a terrible braking system that's what every car had, and when it would rain, Brakes, you'd have to pump the brakes. That's
Yep.
where pump the brakes comes from.
Yep.
Because you don't have to do that with disc brakes and ABS or whatever. So anyways, now I think that the reason why they do that isn't because it's because tech makes life easy, and people are, we're lazy. People
That is a
tend
fact.
to be lazy. We like, we want everything really fast. If you've ever produced a piece of music and used a computer, or a piece of video, whatever, and if the computer takes a couple of extra seconds to render, you're like, the fuck?
Yeah.
And then Apple or whatever comes out with the latest tech, and it's quick for a second, and then all of a sudden it's not quick enough.
Right. Yeah.
So.
We adapt to the behavior very fast now,
and then it's expected.
And then we get spoiled on it.
Yep.
So, all right, an audiophile is a person who is enthusiastic about high fidelity sound reproduction. You seek to reproduce the sound of a live musical performance, typically in a room with good acoustics. Is that correct?
I mean, that's a definition. You can't recreate the live event because the microphones aren't. It's what you want to do is you want to create an illusion, right? It's. First of all, you have to see music the way I see music. I see music as an art form, right? And I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, correct.
It's an art form.
Correct.
Hip hop is poetry. Classical music is, it's
a skill that
it's an art.
Often are born with.
Right. So if you go to the Met or whatever, and you're looking at a piece of art, and you like it, you're going to go through a lot that that piece of art doesn't talk to you, but you're going to see one and you're like, holy crap, this is really connecting. It makes me feel a certain way, right? So music is the same thing. People that are into audio, I'm a music fan. I'm not an audio. Being into audio gear is just a means to the end. The end is the music, right?
Okay.
And there are audio fools. There's audiophiles that are just insane, and they think a certain way, and that's fine. It's good to be.
They're kind of like either right or super left.
Well,
of
yeah,
the spectrum.
these are the people that. Oh God, what producer said this? He said it best. I want to say it was Alan Parsons. I might have to fact check that, but he said something to the effect of audiophiles don't listen to music for the sake of listening to music. They listen to music for the sake of listening to their systems. And I'm not that person. I want to forget that the speakers are there. I want to forget that the amplifiers are there. And then I want to connect with the music.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Although you have called me a couple times, like, "Yo, what just happened in the studio just came on in my house, crazy."
Well, because I was
like, "Oh, he's tweaking his system."
No. I use one of the newer HD radios, and when we clip, when we run, and remember, bass takes up a lot of power, right?
Yes.
And when you punch it on a normal, on a regular system, you want, like, I don't hear here in my office, the tuner doesn't do it, but the tuner that I have at home, for whatever reason, when we ride the levels here at Hot a little too much, or any radio station, it clips. You hear it click. You hear the signal clicking, and it sounds, so.
Got you. Okay. As that's your passion, right?
Right.
And now I know you said you listen to it. You listen to music to hear the music, not for the system, but
to connect. Yeah.
Right. But it is your thing. Like, it's your passion to know that the audio is in the right space, right? Even if it's you wanting the music to be right or whatever. Right. But like, when people make mistakes like that, like when I was riding the level a little too high and you was like, "Yo, pull back a little bit," because how much, like, just on the average, when it's not a part of the job, how much do you want to correct people when they like are doing something that is like bad audio?
Well, no, I mean, the reason why I reach out to you and I've reached out to other shows, it's because when you ride the faders a little too, I mean, we already compress the signal and the sound quite a bit, and for radio, and every radio station does it. I think Hot has pretty good audio quality. But when you ride the level too much, what happens is it just compresses it even more, and the music just doesn't have a ceiling to go to. But here's the messed up thing about having great audio equipment. First of all, there's a misconception that you have to spend a ton of money. You don't. Mm-hmm. You can get some really great speakers for a couple $100, and you don't have to spend a fortune. The high-end market would like for you to think it, but
you have to do your research.
Yeah, you have to do your research. You got to speak to the right people. And if anybody that's listening, if you ever go into an audio store, whatever it is, and they're like, yes, and then you buy these cables, like that's audio fool. Like cables, freaking cable. It's the way it's.
The gold tip, the platinum.
Gold tip is good because it's anti-corrosion.
Okay.
But that's why.
But it doesn't help the signal
per se.
It doesn't
help the signal, no. As a matter of fact, you go into any production studio, talk to any of the top producers, and they will have a conversation of how a microphone sounds different to another microphone and why, a Neumann U47 built, in the same year, maybe with sequential serial numbers might sound different to one another, or compressors sound different to one another, but they're all running the cables that we're running here. You want good quality cable, for microphones, run Star Quad cable.
Well, with cables though, right? It does matter upon which gauge you get, right?
Yeah. So what you want to do is, especially for length, if you're running a speaker and the speaker cable, the power amp or the receiver or whatever, for home theaters, for example, right? The rear speakers, if you're running, a cable 30 feet, then, obviously the higher the gauge, the less signal loss. It's
right.
just a matter of physics. It's, but there are cables, I swear to you, that have batteries in them. Like, that's insane.
That is kind of...
why would you do that?
Yeah. Why would you do that?
And I have no idea. Like, there's no...
Because most cables run on a phantom power, so you don't...
No, cables are passive. I mean, it's
power is only needed for whatever device is connected to.
Right. Some microphones, some condenser microphones need phantom power.
Right.
That does run through the XLR and whatnot. Not right. These. We're using Shure SM7Bs, and these are dynamic microphones. They don't need... they right. just need a robust thing. So anyways, going back to your question, for... the better the equipment, the more mistakes you hear in the production. Like, I'm a huge fan of jazz vocalist Gregory Porter, and his production and his stuff is top notch. But his latest LP, like, I was listening to them, you're like, oh man, that's a little, the Foo Fighters. They what record was it? I want to say it was. Oh man, the one that they go city to city. I forget what it was.
I'm not familiar.
Sonic Highways. Okay. Like there's you hear an edit. So the better the equipment is, and the better your headphones are, unfortunately the more you will, the more that stuff will come through. Right. You put a pair of earbuds on, and it doesn't,
But is that you catching that edit? Is that like, all right? I listen to music, of course. I've worked here for 20 years. I'm a fan of hip hop. I've grown up in it, and I listen nonstop. And I listen for the beat, the production, and the beats, and the words, of course, the lyrics, the bars. But I rarely listen to the actual quality of the production. And I feel like that kind of falls under... for you to hear that edit, that falls under you being an audiophile.
I mean, yeah. What happens is when you hear that, it kind of ruins the effect, right? It ruins it doesn't ruin it. Ruin it is a harsh word.
Does it ruin it for you, though, because you're the one, you're an audiophile, and any audiophile that's listening is going to listen that intensely, to that purpose of seeing, let me catch a mistake, or let me see what the production is.
I don't.
Not that you were looking to catch a mistake.
Do you remember before digital was, the thing for theaters? You remember going and watching a movie and you'd have those little squigglies that look like, it looked like pubes. Do you remember that all of a sudden you'd be watching and all of a sudden it was like that little, it was basically, was just
like in the film.
in the film.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's a film thing.
Or seeing
I'm kind
a
of a
painting.
cinephile. Yeah.
Seeing a painting and there's a speck.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. It's like it's you're enjoying, you're connecting, and all of a sudden
Okay.
there's a little thing. Now, does it ruin it for me? No, absolutely not. But I'm more sensitive to it.
Okay.
I'm more sensitive. I mean, there's some songs that we play here on Hot that are produced and done very well, and there's some that aren't. And Dom Nero. Dom the Bomb
Dom the Bomb.
Dom the Bomb. He and I will sit and listen and just shake our heads and go, what the hell?
Yeah.
When Dom did the remix that he added Sean Paul to Mia from Bad Bunny and Drake.
Yep.
Like I remember he had like 5 different mixes. He's like, what sounds better to you? And we heard it in my office. We heard it in his office. And he sweated the detail of making sure that Sean Paul's mic, the EQ, sounded as close as possible to the mic that Drake and Bad Bunny used. Now, it's tough because, obviously different studios, different sides of the world or whatever, but like and I'm sure that the normal average listener will not pay attention, not give a crap, but when you're a perfectionist and it matters, like you want for it to be a work of art. You want for it to be artistry.
You don't want, as his passion as well, you don't want someone to come back and be like, it sounds like shit.
Right.
And that's like the ultimate stab in the heart.
Not even that, or it's good. No, you want it for people to say, "Oh, that's fucking great.
That's awesome. That's fire. It's the best shit ever." Yeah, definitely. And he went to you as he knows that's your passion.
Well, he and I share the. I don't know if he's as nuts as I am.
I feel like he's looking at you like you're the aficionado to him.
I think he sees me as a decent pair of ears to validate maybe the process. But man, for that, I think he used like 3 de-essers. De-essers for, if you don't know, it's the compressor that you put on S frequencies so it doesn't sound like shh.
You're right.
And crappy microphones will make an S really sound like a shh, and
people
whatever.
don't really know the actual time and effort that producers and engineers put into the quality to make sure that.
Well, that's why you go and you talk to a quote unquote audiophile. And that's why I don't consider myself an audiophile. They're like, oh well, these speakers will make it sound like you're in a concert hall. And it's like, what? Like you want a pair of speakers that makes it sound like that are as flat as possible, that have good directivity, that have that don't distort the signal in any, and if you like to listen louder, you got to get bigger speakers, but they're it makes it it's a warm sound. Oh, okay, so you got all these engineers that put so much time and effort to get a certain sound out of a record, and then you take it to a room where you've purchased these speakers that are warm. And the room is all fucked up and doesn't have any acoustic, and then the art is lost. It's like getting a Picasso or whatever painting that you like getting the Mona Lisa and going to a poorly lit room and displaying it, while shining a green light on it. And then people look at it and go, well, it doesn't look quite right.
It's not as, I thought it would look better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So engineers and producers, they take, I was reading a book by one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best engineers to ever record and work with artists. His name is Al Schmidt, and he's done Paul McCartney and Toto, and he's been around for a long time. He's been around long enough that he did Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole, and so his whole thing is he doesn't use a ton of EQ. And if you go to any production studio, it's like, yo, man, drop the EQ. Like, he's like, no, my EQs are the microphones.
The mix down.
Right. So if I want a warmer sound, I use a warmer microphone. If I want a brighter sound,
he's all about getting it from the source.
From the source, exactly.
Right.
He runs, when he records strings, he records, he sets the mic to not the cardioid pattern, which these are fixed. These microphones that we're using are fixed on the cardioid pattern, which is like a little heart shaped. He uses omnidirectional. He doesn't want for the microphone to have any,
to struggle to search for what it's looking for. He wants to pick up everything.
And then he says, put great instruments in a good sounding, great room, use the right microphones, record it onto the board. And and the other thing is he compresses, like he rides the fader so he doesn't have to use a ton of compression.
So you just led me into like 2 or 3 of my next questions. I'm gonna ask them one at a time, but I'm gonna group them real quick. 1, who do you consider an aficionado of audio? 2, what legendary studios have you gone to? 3, how were you digital when most people were analog? And there was another one that you just said that...
Why LP sound better?
No.
That's an easy one.
What was it? It was about engineers and producers. But I think I have that later, so I'll get to that later. But yeah, so let's start with who do you consider an aficionado of audio?
I think that... look, an aficionado of audio is anybody that wants to hear the art sound as best as it can, right? And I believe that you are. I believe that Flex is an aficionado. Like Flex
definitely.
Flex. Dom.
Definitely.
Skip Dillard, who runs WBLS, and he's the operations manager here. Our director of sales at one point was very into Victor Giacomelli. So there's a lot of people. It's just the level. How much money do you want to spend? And how much time do you want to invest? And with audio gear, unfortunately, you can get really great sounding gear for cheap, but it's not going to, some of these speakers are black boxes that don't have a pretty finish or whatever. They sound great. They don't look phenomenal.
Right.
And so then you take it home, and if you're married or whatever, like the wife looks at you and thinks that you've lost your mind. So who's an aficionado? All those guys are. People in the industry that I think have made huge strides and
anyone with the passion to care about it.
Yeah, and those, that would be a couple of several dudes that came from Canada to work with Harman in the 90s they started
Harman Kardon, the speaker company.
Yeah, Harman, Mr. Harman's company, which embodies, of course, Harman Kardon, whatever, and JBL Pro.
Okay, right.
And Revell speakers and Dr. Floyd E. Toole. Okay. He brought, in a world of snake oil, he brought in blind testing. Like this, he's documented. He has I think his book is in like the 2nd or 3rd edition. He documented... science is repeatable results no matter what, and basically he put people, connoisseurs, audiophiles, aficionados in a room, and he would do blind testing versus sighted testing. And of course, the more expensive speakers, the pretty speakers, the speakers that looked crazy in design, they always did better in the sighted tests. In the blind tests,
or draw,
or no, usually
loss, take the L.
And he came up with he and his team, they came up with, they started analyzing the data, hundreds and thousands of people, blind testing, and just doing like what we do here. We do a lot of research and development here at HOT, and a lot of what I do is R&D work to make sure that we're pleasing the audience. They did the same thing with speakers, and what they found was very simple. People don't want, when they don't know what they're listening to, in terms of a speaker.
Yeah.
What they generally prefer is a speaker that's flat in the frequency response. That means it doesn't overemphasize. It's not a crispy speaker. It's not a boom, boom, boom type of situation. It's flat. It lets you hear what you're listening to. But it's not only on axis. On axis is when the speaker's looking right at you. But when you move your head side to side, 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 30 degrees, 60 degrees. You want that to be as flat as possible because
encompassing the room evenly.
Well, yeah, because when the speaker generates sound, it's a shotgun, right?
Yeah.
And what you don't want is to have the sound that bounces off the walls and back into your ears for that to have uneven frequency response. So Floyd E. Toole, Dr. Floyd E. Toole, Sean Olive, Kevin Vakes, Mark Glazer, a dude that was with JBL Pro that designed the if you go to my office, the waveguide that's in my speaker,
right.
he designed that for Harman for JBL Pro. And he left and started his own speaker company called Cali Audio.
Okay.
And again, it's amazing sounding speaker. I haven't heard the Cali Audios, but it's like all the reviews and everything's like, oh my God, these are great monitors. Okay. And they're like $200. Like these are, and they have an amplifier inside them. So all you got to do is plug them in and rock out.
Good
and
to go.
have, right. And the other thing is, I don't know if this is part of the questions. I forgot all your questions.
No,
anyways, but the other thing is the room. Like the room plays a big part. The room is if you're into audio.
The acoustics.
Yeah, it's like having, let's say that you were into film and into home movies or whatever, right? You're into, so imagine getting the best projector that you can, digital, 8K, blah, 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 and then you put it in a room with a ton of lighting.
Yeah, and it looks like shit.
It looks like shit.
Yeah.
Get a small TV.
White out, yeah.
So audio's the same way. If you want to enjoy audio, get a decent room. With furnishings. And,
you have to have the right ambiance.
And you got to place. You got to place speakers the right way too to make sure you get the effect, the stereo effect. Which is the stereo effect should be. And hip hop doesn't have big stereo. Hip hop is bass is very omnidirectional.
808s.
And right but if you listen to a piece of classical music, or if you like a soundtrack from a movie and you plop that on, you want to be able to hear the violin section here, the trombone section over there, the drums over there, the cellos over there, the wind instruments, and you want to be able to close your eyes and say, and have that connection. Yeah. When you can connect at that level, the music takes, it'll give you goosebumps.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people haven't actually experienced it that way, but yes, they definitely should.
And the other thing is, it's not loud. It doesn't have to be loud.
No.
Like, I'm not talking about, you have to, summer jam 100 feet away from the stage loud. Like, you don't have to have it that loud to really appreciate and enjoy it.
I actually, when I experience concert events, I actually don't enjoy it for the most part because it's if a group that's on that's my favorite group and I know the lyrics, but maybe I haven't recited it in a while and then I kind of forget and then you kind of like drop back to let them say it to remind you where you're at.
Yeah.
But at a concert and it's super booming loud like that and you're saying the lyrics and you kind of get to that part where you don't remember and you're like, all right. But you can't understand where they're at, so you're like, damn, I don't remember where to pick up now.
I went to see one of our favorite salsa singers at Carnegie Hall, I don't know, like a year ago, whatever. And Carnegie Hall, you think, Carnegie Hall.
That is exactly the thought that popped in my head just now.
The problem with Carnegie Hall is that it's designed... I don't know if it's designed to have a ton of wind instruments that are amplified and the speakers, and it sounded terrible. And I protect my hearing. I take earplugs to all our events, to Summer Jam, to concerts or whatever. I just to get, like a minus 10 dB situation because, your ears are important. My ears, I try to protect them as much as possible, whatever. But that, the sound was freaking, it was... And you'd think, Carnegie Hall, that's an no.
It pissed you off?
It didn't piss me off. I just couldn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to because it was like you can't get involved, or I can't get involved when it's just, it's like you're like the highs are screeching and you feel like somebody's poking your freaking ears.
Go there thinking, oh, I'm about to experience this great audio because it's Carnegie Hall, and then it was like,
I mean, I've been to Carnegie Hall where the audio's been beautiful and it's usually not a lot of amplification, and and I've been to Carnegie Hall when it's too much amplification, too much, and
less is more.
Yeah, and just the reverberation of the room or whatever, it just drives you crazy.
Got you. How'd you get to Carnegie Hall?
How did I get to Carnegie Hall?
Yeah. That's an old joke, Pio. You're supposed to say practice.
Practice.
All right, next question. How many legendary studios have you visited?
I mean, I've been to a bunch of studios, but like legendary in the 90s, I was at Capitol, and that was an experience. I have a couple of friends that have sworn that next time I cross over the pond and I'm in Europe, dude, we can totally get you into Abbey Road. That's a studio I would love to go to.
So you didn't go to Abbey Road?
I didn't go into Abbey Road studio. It's a working studio. It's like, some dude trying to get into Hot 97. It's like, dude, we're working here,
Yeah, facts.
But they do tours or I've been told, but you have to plan it in advance.
Gotcha.
You have to really, have a connection or whatever. But no. I did the crosswalk where the Beatles, for
I saw on your Instagram page, the Home and Pro Audio page.
The store I visited and spent way too much money. But I mean, those are, talk about legendary studios. Like Google the mic locker at Abbey Road Studios. Like they still have U47s and U40, like the original. And there's this guy that has been taking care of them for years.
Wow.
Has a log, make sure that they were in working fashion.
That's love right there. He loves.
Yeah. So then you get that and all that love and all that mic, and you throw it into a system with $10,000 speaker cables and crappy frequency response in a shitty room, and you could have recorded off your iPhone.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, speaking of iPhone, right? Last of the group questions. How were you digital when most people were analog?
Early adapter.
Yeah.
So I had a Laserdisc player when everybody had VHS. So I'd overspend. You had to find the stores. They're heavy. So Laserdisc, if you're not of our age, if you're younger and you're listening to this, congratulations. But those, there were 12-inch Laserdiscs.
It's literally like a piece of vinyl, but it's metal.
But it's like a big CD, and it's about as I want to say at least as thick as a 180-gram vinyl record. And man, heavy. That collection, when I moved it, obviously radio business makes you move back and forth or whatever. I remember carrying those boxes and thinking, holy crap, these things are, So early adapter, chasing quality, chasing the experience, chasing the connection, buying movies that were shitty, but they were on this format.
Yeah.
Do
you still have that?
I don't do that anymore. I sold all my I have a Laserdisc player at my mother-in-law's house in Miami. I'm not sure it works, but I kept it.
Okay. I feel like that's something that's going to later on be somebody look at this piece of technology that lasted for 4 years.
And people will look at it and go, oh, how cool, okay, and then move on. And I kept one Laserdisc collection. And it's a Star Wars. It's the original Star Wars, and the Laserdiscs.
Oh no, that's fire!
So the Laserdisc had two speeds. You had like a LP type speed.
Right.
These are like the fast. So if I remember correctly, this is the Criterion Collection or something that it's constant speed from the start of the disc to the end of the disc. Right. Yeah. So think about it: a 12-inch disc. It's more revolution. It has more material on the outside, and the inside it gets
Thinner.
Because it goes from a 12-inch circle to a 10-inch to an 8-inch.
Right.
As you get closer to the center,
Right.
It's just like LPs. LPs have you have to EQ them differently when they get closer to the center because it fucks with the high frequencies.
Right.
So, anyways, these laser discs, it's like 4 laser discs per movie or whatever.
Wow.
And it's a big ass box or whatever. And I kept that one.
And you had so it's like what 12 because it's 3 original movies. It's the original series, correct?
Yeah, it's the original
New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the only
That's
one.
fire.
That
You're speaking my language now, for sure.
Yeah. It's a beautiful box, too. The books and whatever inside it are.
Yeah.
Beautiful
I could
presentation.
imagine. That's probably actually worth good money right now because since then they've been digitally restored. So they're actually different. I do have this question, right? That kind of, since we're talking about movies and since we're talking about Star Wars specifically,
right?
THX certification, is that necessary when you're watching a movie?
It used to because there was no standard. And I mean, THX used to be important. THX is basically a standard, like your amplifier needed to put out X amount of power and make sure that it didn't clip and make sure that your speakers didn't blow up. And the speakers that were THX certified needed to be able to handle a certain amount of power without distortion and, correct directivity. But I think that everything is caught up. Like there's, with the amplifiers that are in receivers nowadays, like, finding one with at least 100 watts for 7 channels or whatever, like that's easier to find than back then when, I remember 5-channel amplifiers that had, 100 watts for the front 3 channels, but 25 watts to the rear and 1 power transformer and all this. And, THX used to mean more.
Okay. So those that don't know, THX is the sound quality. Actually,
standard.
It's a standard, but it was created by George Lucas. When he created Star Wars, before he created Star Wars, his first film was called THX.
Yeah, but that was the THX standard. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, was a late '80s, early '90s situation because surround sound was coming to the home.
Right.
Because surround sound was making its way.
THX was in movies only.
Right.
Prior to that.
THX was in movies only, and remember, movies used to be mono. Mono is one speaker doing, then stereo was a big thing, and then surround was a big thing, and surround was basically 4 speakers, 2 in the front in stereo and 2 in the back with a mono signal.
I have that. I was going to cut that question, but how do you feel about surround sound? Like, is it necessary?
Again, it depends how much you want to connect with what you're watching. It depends how much you want to connect with the movie.
Do you just want to watch it or do you want to feel it?
Well, yeah, no, and do you want to be enveloped? I mean, now I don't know if you need 1,000 speakers and whatever. I mean, my system has 5 speakers. Subs are important. Don't get 1 big sub. Get 3 small ones if you can. Get 3 big ones if you can, but I have 3 smaller subs placed around the room or whatever. But we're introducing our girls to the Harry Potter movies, and those sound great. Oh man, those the sound design they're very dynamic, and they sound amazing. But it's like I don't have 1,000 speakers.
Right, it's not necessary.
Atmos is insane. It's like 1,000 speakers or whatever.
Quick question: 3.5 millimeter or Lightning port? For sound,
I mean, Lightning port gets you so much. It's like the HDMI where you used to have to pass, a video cable and 5 audio cables. You just have 1 cable now. So the simpler, the better. Okay. And the more information you can pass with 1 cable, the better.
Okay. All right. Is listening to music via the phone/computer like ear throw up to you?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it's. No, I mean the DACs inside phones now are decent. You can get an external DAC or whatever, and if you have don't listen to music at 96 kilobytes per second. That's insane. But the 256, the Apple 256 AAC or whatever it is, I mean, look, there's some people that swear they can hear all these differences or whatever, and there are differences. But it's incredible how many times you will play a WAV file, especially of music that has a lot of high frequency information, and then you play a compressed file, and people almost, not always, but I've seen people prefer the compressed file because it cuts that, basically all the algorithm is doing is trying to figure out what your mind can replace that they can take out to save space, right? That's basically what compression is. And a lot of times, like, well, this doesn't sound, that sounds very bright and it hurts my ear, so that has to be the MP3. No, But if you listen at a very low bit quality and like it sounds, like if you're streaming a radio station from your phone, you are getting not the best signal. It's just we can't stream at a very high, just because we can't.
Right.
So,
okay. Have you ever been to a silent party?
I know of them, but no, I've never. Dude, I have 4 kids. I don't.
You don't have time for all that.
I don't got time for all that. I got time for Dora the Explorer.
They have popped up more recently. I know Flex did one recently.
You put on the headphones and
they're kind of weird to me. So I just trying to figure out if someone who appreciates audio, how you would feel.
Well, it depends on the headphones.
Yeah, of course, right? That makes sense. Have you ever heard of hi-fi Wi-Fi hubs?
No, but
I recently came across this. It's like a USB port situation, and it's like these 3 pieces that you pull out like little pucks, and then you plug your headphone into it, and then now we're all listening to the same thing.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like a social listening situation.
It's kind of like a silent party, right?
It's kind of like a silent party, except for BYOH and bring your own headphones, and I guess the wherever it's plugged in at is depending on, it's not a DJ situation necessarily.
Right. It's more of somebody playing the music off.
Well, I just was trying to wonder if you had heard. No, I know you do a lot of research in the field, so I was wondering if you had even heard of it.
No.
Audio tones, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're being used for a lot more now. Have you ever heard of Listener? LISNER?
No.
So Listener started as an app, I believe 2014. J. Cole dropped an album in it, and it was one of the first times after, of course, Flex dropped the DJ Funk Flex app, and we had Who You Mad At Me and Yourself mixtape. That was the first time I saw an audio project drop in an app. The second time was Magna Carta Holy Grail. The third time was J. Cole, and he dropped in this app called Listener, and then I started paying attention to that app from that point forward. Mm-hmm. The app stopped doing that, and the app's creator, Rodney Williams, has innovated the technology that he's been using to make these deals. Listener now is like a base application that companies can work with to do a whole bunch of different things. One of them is payments through audio. Another is unlocking and starting your car through audio.
Right.
Securing your house through audio.
So audio tones.
Audio tones.
Yeah. Ebro was talking this morning about he has an app that starts his car and does this and that and the other, and so I would imagine it's that technology. And audio tones have been around our business forever.
Yes.
Like the audio, the audio tones would set off a piece of audio, sound through a cart machine or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is becoming a thing, like in the future.
But Tad, it's the same thing that we're talking about in terms of virtual reality and things that are kind of ahead of its time or whatever. Audio tones have been around forever.
Yeah.
Sending an audio tone through the wire to start something miles and miles away. It's just now it's so much easier with this device.
Right. With
that was
smartphone.
Unthinkable 20 years ago.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Correct. So yeah, we're heading into that leads me into my next question, which that necessarily wasn't a question aside from have you heard about it, the audio tones. But my next question is, how do you feel about spatial audio, which is the audio used in 360 and VR that is recorded differently. It's more. It's not about. It's about where. Like it's about placing, making like so. If somebody's walking behind you in VR and prompting you to turn around and look in a certain direction,
it has to come from behind you.
Right.
I mean that all that. Obviously, that's done in a studio. And have you seen the new Atmos studios?
No.
The new Atmos studios. It's basically. They're very cool. Google it and for you to see a picture, but it's an array of speakers, 360 degrees overhead, and basically, 360 degrees, 360 degrees. Sorry, behind you, and it's for that. It's for placement, and really the first place that I remember hearing that was the old IMAX theaters. Remember the old IMAX theaters? And they would boast about it. Where your normal theater has, 5.1, we have 20,000.50 or whatever. And I think it's awesome. And the way they mix it and the way that, it's at the AES show here a few months ago, they were showing a piece of software that it basically was a little green ball, and the sound designer was moving stuff around, looking at the screen, making sure that that the sound was moving, because it has to be aligned with time.
Yes. Again,
it's all about the illusion.
Yes.
If it's not perfectly aligned in time and in line of sight, then it messes the illusion, and then you stop paying attention. And you start thinking about, well, that was a fuck up,
and looking for other fuck ups and looking to see, well, what's really going on here. You want to pull the curtain back.
Throws you off, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there will ever be a time that technology will make audio so complicated you won't enjoy it anymore?
No, I don't think so. I think that instruments are instruments and singers are singers, and no, I think it should be better. I think that that technology is going to make it better, because recording techniques and the devices that you use to record, those should get better. Now, the problem is, it's like everything. It's like having a palette of paint and having the best paints that look like real life, like the flesh tones in this palette, look like human skin, doesn't matter what tone of skin you are, it looks real. And and then you get somebody that doesn't know what they're doing and how to use it right, and they just splatter, and and they don't use the right colors or whatever. It's the same thing when you're producing music or when you're producing anything. Right. You might have the best equipment available to you. Look, I'll give you an example that for me personally, there's a female singer, not hip hop. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to offend anybody or whatever, but every time that I hear, this is a big singer, her, she's British.
Okay.
And she was so big that we actually were we have to play this on Hot when she debuted her last album. Okay. And for me, I don't, I would love for this guy, the guy I was telling you, Al Schmidt, to produce her next record, if she even produces a next record. Because I think that it just sounds shrill, and her voice is piercing, and they're trying to get a crystal clear and brilliant sound, and what they ended up with is something that doesn't sound very natural to me, or to my ears. We all hear differently, but to me it's very piercing and very uncomfortable. And the test to that is when you hear a piece of music and you crank the volume and you go, fuck, this shit sounds good, and you're into it, and versus, oh, I got to turn the volume down a little bit because it's hurting me. Yeah. So again, technology should, in the hands of the right person, in the hands of the right producer, in the hands of somebody that has the skill, it should be an enhancement. Yeah, an enhancement, right. And really what you want is to get as close as possible to the emotion of, think about the emotion that J. Cole puts from his brain to his hand to that pencil as he's writing down on a piece of paper what his heart and his mind feel. Imagine getting as close as possible to that without distraction. Really, that's the thing, is minimizing the distractions.
Yeah. Okay.
So you could feel it more. So.
All right. Quick questions. Couple quick questions.
Sure.
Beats or Monster?
The new beats are really fucking good. I haven't heard the new Monsters. The original beats were, you know, the ones that started the headphone revolution that we live in today. I always thought they were fun headphones to listen to because it almost made music that you knew very well, like caricatures, like almost animation of real life, you know, because they colored the music so much because it was so bass heavy.
You know, the original beats were Monsters.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I know about the whole thing, and I know that they split off or whatever. But the new beats are really, I think they're really good headphones. A little overpriced. I haven't heard the Monster ones, but I have a fundamental problem with people that sell expensive speaker cable.
Yeah, gotcha. Sony or JBL?
JBL.
All day. But Sony was such a standard in radio specifically.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I mean, for speakers, you know, JBL for sure, and especially the JBL of the last, you know, 10, 15 years or whatever, because of Tool and Sean Olive and all these people, pardon me, that I mentioned. But in terms of equipment and, you know, their elevated standard, have you seen the Sony ES, the elevated standard Sony stuff?
No.
Oh man, it's beautiful. I have in my mother-in-law's house in Miami, I have an old ES receiver, still works. They still use it to this day, and it was, you know, the guts inside are better, and it's an elevated standard. For the TVs, like JBL doesn't make TVs,
no,
you know.
Yeah.
So the JBL versus Sony thing is kind of like not a fair, because they're like, I wouldn't buy a JBL TV,
right?
They don't even make it, right?
Right.
But Sony is like, I'm a fan of Sony.
Okay.
I'm a fan of Sony, and they have, I don't know how, they have like really great speaker systems and stuff.
Yeah, they
but it's ES, and they don't have the economy of scale to produce them. So, you know, speaker that would normally cost you maybe $5,000, they have to sell it for 10 to make up for them not having the economy of scale.
Speaking of cost, right? I hit you one time and said, yo, if you gave me a gift for Christmas, thank you again, and it was some lottery tickets, and I said, if I hit, I'm gonna buy you this speaker. And you were like, yo, those were like $100,000. And the thing I looked up said like $200,000, right? Yeah. What's the most expensive speaker?
There's $1 million speakers.
There's $1 million speaker.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of systems and that are $1 million. And again, you can Google it and whatever, but I mean, like, you'd have to have that amount of money and think about it. If you have that amount of money, you have several places that you're living, and you're experiencing life.
You're a billionaire.
You're a billionaire. You're experiencing life in a totally like if I were a billionaire, I don't think I'd spend that amount of money, even though I'm a geek or whatever, because it's like there's so many, like,
too much more important things there.
Yeah.
But that's because you know audio, and you know that you could do it for $200 for the speaker. So you don't necessarily need that. But the average billionaire, unless you're Elon Musk, probably isn't thinking.
Yeah, I mean, like, what can $1 million speaker system give you? You know, $1 million speaker system set up in a shitty room is going to sound shitty.
Right.
You know, but what you get into is, you know, it's the finish, and they're probably done one at a time, and it probably takes the people that make it. Yeah, exactly.
Gold screws.
Whatever. And things that really don't. What I like about certain speaker companies, there's a handful of speaker companies that I really, you know, for lack of a better term fuck with, because the science behind them and the R&D behind them are legit. And that's what I told you. You know, the JBLs, the Revels, but also Jenny's, the Genelex, Dyne Audio, and
Dyne I've heard of. I haven't heard of Genelex per se.
Genelec?
Yeah, I don't think.
Jenny's? Yeah, they're in Dom's studio. It's the.
Maybe.
Are you fucking around with me?
No. I mean, but I'm not the audio guy. You are.
Yeah, they're the speakers that they're the speakers that are in Dom's studio, that are in the production studio.
Okay.
They're the
The big boys.
the box. No, they're not even. They're 8-inch.
Okay.
But if the 1031s, those are old. Those are like 1992 vintage speakers, and they're still used today because they're good speakers.
Right.
So but those if you were in the market to buy a pair of speakers, I'd say look at those.
Right.
If you want a pretty finish or whatever, and if you want to pay more for that, great.
What would $1 million speaker for a speaker for sale for $1 million? What would it cost to make that, in your estimation?
Oh, 400,000. I mean, or not even, because so $1 million speaker system, you expect for that speaker to be delivered to your house, for a guy in a white lab coat to come with big thick glasses to come with a clipboard and test it and spend and there's a company that
the butler to hit play when I'm ready,
right,
at any time.
Exactly, and at any time or whatever. So that costs money.
Yeah.
So if you're buying $1 million speaker system, it probably costs $200,000 to actually build because of the materials and because this wood is crazy rare and etc. And then you gotta ship it.
Yeah.
And think about the shipping when you're talking about a speaker that costs $200,000 to make, which I don't even know if it would cost that much, but you have to make sure that it gets from where it's built.
Yeah.
By Santa's elves or whatever.
I don't want it in a box. I want it handled like.
Yeah. Right? But that costs money.
Yeah.
So economy of scale comes into play not only for audio stuff, but for TVs. You can buy, if you have a very small manufacturer that does really good 60-inch, LCD or whatever it is, the OLED, versus a Samsung or a Sony or an LG that produces them at a high rate of speed, you're probably going to, the quality
is going to be...
is going to be comparable. Maybe the Sony or whatever will be better, but you're going to pay more to the smaller manufacturer because the guy needs to make some money.
Yeah.
And, and he doesn't have... He's not producing 1,000 of them, but that's the same for everything. For sneakers,
that's true.
For
once there's an assembly line, it's going to make everything cheaper.
Well, yeah, and that assembly line, there is. I'll tell you a really geek story here if you're in the mood for it. But there's this dude that designs speakers. His name is Andrew Jones, and Andrew Jones is he's a British guy. He now works with ELAC. But worked for Pioneer. And Pioneer, you know how Toyota has Lexus and Honda has Acura?
Yes.
Okay, so
Nissan
Pioneer has TAD.
Okay.
Right, so it's their high end. So this is the chief guy at TAD. So Pioneer commissioned him when he worked with him and said, we want to make a great speaker designed by you that we can sell for under $100 a pair. But they're great, like competing with speakers like they have no business competing with, right? So they went to work, not so much in how the speaker sounded or whatever, but how it had to look, what size it had to be, what size the container that it was in had to be, the packaging, how much you can get in a box, how many boxes you can get in a crate, how many crates you can get in a container, where you're going to build it, and you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So because all that plays a factor in cost.
Yeah, of course.
So they came up with this speaker, and the speaker is I actually have a pair, and it has a really long name. Pioneer is still building them. It's a small black ash finished speaker, 4-inch woofer, 1-inch tweeter, soft dome tweeter.
Yeah,
it's the ones that push in easy.
Yeah.
And a waveguide. It sounds great. I mean, look, you're not going to get life-size sound out of it. But if you play it at a normal level, like that's a really good fucking speaker for under $100.
That doesn't happen a lot.
So and like I said, he designed it years ago, and they're still selling. Like they're still selling the same thing, and I think he improved it. There was a version 2 or whatever, but and then there's this company that builds their stuff by hand, and it's their name is funny. It's spelled SCHIIT. It's shit. It's pronounced shit audio.
Shit audio.
So and it's and I just read their book, and it's fascinating. It was started by 2 pioneers of high-end audio, Mike Moffat and Jason Stoddard. And these guys worked at Theta Digital and like the big high-end companies and blah, 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 blah. Geeks like us, they got together in California and said, we want to build shit that's easy, for people, for easily accessible, cut out the middleman. You can only buy it direct. It's going to sound great because it's designed by us. We're going to get, and the guy did it and started like Gates and Jobs did out of his garage, building stuff. And, the guy, Jason's wife would say, what are you doing? I have to go deal with this shit. I have to go, do this shit. And his wife jokingly said, that's what you should call the audio company. You're always working. Like they hadn't figured out a name. And it's so funny because one of the high-end publications, I think it was an online publication, they were fucking around. Like these guys are jokesters. I mean, you call your company shit.
No, facts.
But, one of the reviewers was like, yes, and it's pronounced, and they gave him all this bullshit on the way it's pronounced. And the fucking guy fell for it. Like you go to their website, Shit Audio or whatever, and like it like they sell cables.
Right.
They sell really good constructed cables at a very decent price, like good XLR cables, good, Right. And at first you start reading, it's like, oh, our cables are made from, like you start reading this and you're like, holy shit, these guys are really into this bullshit. And then at the end it's like, yeah, it's all bullshit, but they're really good cables. They're constructed very well. Yeah. They're going to last you a lifetime.
If you want a story, here you go.
Yeah.
If you need something to say.
But anyways, that's how they are. And I have I want to get a DAC, a digital to analog converter, which I don't know if we need to explain what that is, but
Yeah. These
basically gets the ones and zeros from a digital piece and turns it into something you can actually hear. But I bought
They're used to it the other way around, converting from analog to digital.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like this microphone that we're talking into now, it's analog, and then it has to go into digital, but it has to be converted back to analog for the ear to hear it.
Correct.
So,
correct.
So those are those converters. But anyways, I got the Shit Manny. It's a I swear to you, dude, this is the fucking name. I'm not kidding.
I believe
it's a phono preamp. And $110 when I bought it. It's great. It's fucking great. And there's phono preamps that are $20,000 and $50,000 and whatever. And these guys are making some great equipment built here by hand in the good old United States. Not subbing it out or whatever, not doing what Andrew Jones and the guys from Pioneer did, which is like, let's make sure that like every fucking house in the United States can have a pair of these speakers if they wanted to. Like this, when they run out of their stuff, it's back ordered. Hey, we're gonna have some,
Yeah. All right, that's good. How much do you think the perfect system should be for the average consumer? Knowing that they can get...
Like, if you're really interested or whatever, I think you could get a really decent system, digital, for $1,000.
Okay.
For under $1,000, you can get really, good stuff and used. There's some stuff you can buy used.
Yeah. That's
really good. Like Reverb.com and Audiogon.com are great websites because all this stuff that you buy, I mean, it loses its value instantly. You buy
as soon as it's off the shelf,
unless you're buying something really special, like you could buy the closest replica of a U-47 made by Telefunken. Now they make it here in the United States, and I want to say it's Connecticut. that mic will set you back $9,000. So Ed Sheeran uses it, and it's the mic, right? It's the vocal mic that to use. Why did we get into this? Now I lost my.
I asked you how much the perfect system would.
Right. So.
I do that all
and we
the
started
time.
talking about, you use gear or whatever. So,
Right.
so you could buy that mic for about $9,000. You could buy clones, reproductions, because that schematic has been out for so long and it's been copied. You could buy a really decent sounding U47 style mic for $900. So you got $900, $9,000, or you can get an original for $20,000. Right, because it's the original. It's when Telefunken made the tubes and whatever, and Neumann made the capsule and all this shit.
Right.
So, but audio equipment is, you buy a piece of gear today for $500, and good luck trying to sell it for $500.
That's
it's going to be
fact.
worth. Right. So used gear, if you want to go, I wouldn't buy a used cartridge.
Okay.
Needle for because you don't know how you don't know if it's been maintained or whatever.
It might be on its way out as you buy it.
Yeah.
Got you.
But
Okay.
I think with $1,000, you can get a very close to state of the art digital system, not not with a turntable or whatever. That's because that gets expensive.
Got you. There was a fake video going around.
Just let me add to that real quick because I think it's important.
Yes.
What I just said about turntables, like if you buy a $100 turntable and you compare that to a $1,000 turntable, like you will hear the difference. You will hear the difference because, speed accuracy, noise, drive, etc. You buy a $100 CD player and a $1,000 CD player. You play it through the same system,
There's no difference.
and especially if you know how you have the coax out.
Yeah.
You do coax out into whatever DAC you're using, whatever your receiver is.
Yeah.
Dude, you cannot hear that. I'm sorry. You might think you can, but in a blind test, and there's been thousands of them, people cannot hear the difference.
Digital is digital.
Digital is digital. It's either there or it's not. It's ones and zeros. And the DAC could play, some people might be able to hear differences in DACs and the digital to analog converters, but analog is different. Analog and turntables, it gets to a point of diminishing returns for sure.
Right.
But
quality is quality.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, all good. So what I was going to say was a little while back, I kept getting hit about this fake video. And everybody's like, what do you think about this? Do you think it's real? Or can this be done? It was a kid who happens to be a rapper looking like he had this implant, this device implanted into his arm that opened up and it affected his vocal cords and allowed him to have auto-tune at will. It was like, to me, it was like, y'all are ridiculous for even asking me this because
no.
But the technology doesn't exist yet.
Well, hold on a second. You haven't seen the Mission Impossible movies?
Well,
They do that shit.
I haven't seen the last one, but I've seen.
What, you didn't see the first one where they put
but I know how movies are made as well. So,
well, remember that's the when they put on the masks to imitate somebody else, and they put the chip and
which is actually from a Star Trek. Since we spoke on an earlier episode of them having this mask that you put over your head and it just turns into whoever it is. But my question is.
Is it possible?
Not today. It's not possible today, but it might be at some point.
Absolutely.
Would you let your kids, if they've said, Dad, I need to get this auto-tune implant, would you let them?
I would let my kids do whatever it is that makes them happy, as long as it's not illegal and gets them into trouble. Like, I would hate for my kids to do drugs.
Right.
But aside from that, I would like for my kids to be as happy as possible because they're not, we're not here for a long time. on this beautiful
That's a
rock
fact.
that we call home.
It passes too
so
fast.
you want to get a freaking auto tune or whatever, and you can afford it, and I don't have to fucking pay for it.
Yeah.
Go
your
get two.
thing.
Get two. That way you can have your
One in
voice in
song.
stereo. Which some people believe that you can do voice in stereo, but that's another podcast. But yeah, I mean, man. I mean, that's my philosophy on it's, as long as it's not hurting anybody. It's like I remember when I was a kid, my dad is like, "You ever get a tattoo?" And that. It's like, why? Like, it's my fucking, like, it's my
body.
prerogative.
Yeah.
What the fuck is, like, if,
Yeah.
anyways.
So
Would you let your kids do the fucking
I think.
or have I changed your mind now?
No. I think I have done I would trust him to know that he wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I think I'm.
Why would you want to do that? I mean, it's.
I mean,
Your voice is the instrument that God gave you. Like, it's the only natural instrument that we're all born with. We all have different timbres. We all have different frequency range and response, and some people have great voices, some people, but it's yours, and it's like your fingerprint.
Yes.
It's so why would you want to, I mean, I remember when auto-tune was a thing, and
well, it still is kind of.
I
but
know.
The T-Pain definitely.
I mean,
started off.
T-Pain kind of made a caricature of it, and look, there's some, auto-tune is, it's basically, you've heard of tone deaf. Like, there's some people that are tone deaf.
Yes.
They can't, they will not be able to hear a tone out of place and say, oh, that sounded like shit.
Yeah.
So, so what auto-tunes does is it fixes that. And yeah, I mean, there's a ton of artists, ton of very well-respected artists that we love here that are pillars of this radio
That's a
station.
fact.
And like, you see them rap live and you go, wow.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah.
It's a little different. Well, that leads me to my next question, right? Do you think today's rappers owe their career to the producers? Specifically because today's rappers that use autotune, it's all about the sound. It's not about the skill anymore. It's not about, oh, he got a flow or he this. You can have bars and still do that type of sound, the trap sound or whatever, but it is about the sound. So do they owe their career to the producer?
I think that the key word there is owe. And that's that question really is a multifaceted answer. And the short answer that I would say is no. And here's why. If you're an artist, you have to have a certain level of talent. And if there's a producer that says, man, with the raw material that you're bringing to the table, I can turn this shit to shinola, which is an old saying. I don't know.
Correct.
Younger people,
Right.
if anybody's survived the amount of bullshit that we've been talking, the geek shit that we've been talking. But anyways, so you have to, the raw material that the artist brings still is unique to that person, right? Now, it's very different than if you say, if a producer says, hey, I can make anybody sound good. Like people with no talent, then yeah.
Okay.
So, but if it's somebody that at least has the talent, look, and there's some guys that and girls that write really well, and they're poets.
Yeah.
But they can't fucking throw down on a mic worth of shit. And there's people that rock the mic and can't, so there's varying degrees of talent. There's varying degrees of, but if you have some talent and the producer says, hey, I can tweak here and there, I can airbrush your sound. It's like models.
Right.
Like, you're hot, but man, hold on a second.
They're an enhancement, but they're not the package.
Now, they get you and me to model, and ain't no airbrushing going to save us.
Facts.
So.
Big facts. So then my next question is, do you feel like today's producer owe a large part of their success to their engineers?
Oh, yeah. There's, I think the engineer is the unsung hero of the stuff we listen to, and not to take anything away from the producer, but the engineer that's actually putting the stuff together, and like everything, there's great engineers and engineers that are that aren't as talented. But yeah, I mean, the engineers are now getting credit.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it, and it, because it's important. There's it's funny that you should mention that, and I was just reminded in the book that I read from Al Schmidt. The book is called On the Record. He says a lot of these producers would come in and they'd get on their phone or they'd go take a call or whatever, and it was up to me and the band, and of course he's engineering the record. And he points out, he doesn't name any names, but he says, and the producers would step out of the room and not be really interested, and it was the engineer's job to make sure that everything sounded the way the artist intended, which is really, at the end of the day, what you want to put on the record.
Facts.
So
okay, that's dope. That's dope. Numbers are a techie's friend, right? Like we all rely on numbers, and I produce Flex's show, and of course, as a techie, I'm into math and numbers, but the numbers I use the most for my job is time, right? Keeping track of time in my head. That way, during a song, a whole life can happen.
Yep.
What are the numbers that you keep track as PD on a daily basis?
Oh, man. I mean, there's so much data now. I've been in radio for such a long time. I mean, I got in when I was 14 years old to run boards and the Sunday morning shows that you couldn't get anybody else to run. I was like, I'll do it.
Right.
And just the data that's available now. I mean, I think the most important numbers, and Flex and I get on the phone at least once a week to discuss the ratings, and it's those numbers. So, I mean, data is, it's amazing. And just like everything in life, with everything, you can't let the data push you off a cliff either. You can't, the more data you have, the more prone you are to thinking, oh, I don't need art. It's kind of going back to the producer that says, oh, now with auto-tune, you don't need a ton of talent. You don't need to be, whatever.
Right.
We can get by with, but you need numbers, but it's a combination of art and science. Like when you're producing for funk, those numbers are just part of the equation. Your ability to make sure that they mean something and you press the button when you need to, put the fader up or down when it needs to, give Flex the cue when he needs to. That's the performance. That's your art.
Right, definitely. Speaking of ratings, and if we got to keep something secret, it is what it is. But what do you feel like is your most important number ratings wise? I've seen you do your thing. I know you take, like you said, the data is numerous, and you take things from here and things from there, and you put it together to make the whole circle.
Sure.
What do you think is the most important thing when you're doing all of that, if you can say? Without giving away our trade secrets.
Because whoever believes what I'm about to say will go, oh shit, that makes sense, and whoever doesn't, because they have a different way of it's like, well, this guy's full of shit and he should go,
they'd be stupid to think that, but go ahead.
Thank you. I think, radio is it's a mass pleaser, and that is the toughest. Yeah. That's the toughest.
It is,
because you're always going to have critics that it's not good enough, that you play the same song too often, that you play so the numbers that I look at is I try to, and it's not me, it's me and the team of people that I work with, TT Torres and
shout out to TT
and Dom Nero, which we brought before, Jay Dixon and Ebro chimes in, but it ultimately is my call to to say, all right, this is, when a call has to be made.
Right.
And radio is about pleasing a lot of people, the most amount of people.
As much as possible.
As much as possible and as frequently as possible. And everybody listens different. And, there's people that listen a couple of minutes in the morning and a couple of minutes in the midday, and then they might catch Flex for a couple of minutes. And then there's people that turn on Hot 97 and listen all day. And there's people that listen to win contests, and they don't even care what we're doing. They don't care about hip-hop. They don't care about the conversation. So to try to capture the ratings, you have to please, you got to please as much as possible the connoisseurs, the people that are ahead of the curve. You can't be too ahead of the curve, when it comes to new music. So it is a balancing act.
It is.
So, I know that doesn't answer your questions as to a specific set of numbers.
Yeah.
But the data that I get with numbers that guides me, it's a lot, but that's what I try to get from the data.
Got you. That does actually answer the question, because regardless of which number, the outcome is suggesting that all the numbers are just as important. So it's how you're tweaking for what you want.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, look, you can't. It's very hard to have one restaurant that sells cheeseburgers that everybody just loves.
Right.
You're going to have the people that go and it's like, it's okay. I've had better. You're going to have the people that adore it and go every day. And then you're going to have the people that totally hate it. Yeah. and that's why, there's many restaurants or whatever. And it's tough because, especially for Hot, which is such a big and important brand and beacon.
It's a staple.
It's worldwide or whatever. And if we fart, people,
smell it
across the nation, smell it, and then they say, well, they farted. Let's analyze the fart. Let's, and we get scrutinized. And at the end of the day, really, our job here inside is to make sure that we're pleasing the people that use radio, the people that want to hear a song they can sing along to, make sure that the stuff that we play a lot isn't burnt to a crisp or whatever, and making sure that there's this tab we get 30 new songs a week, if not 40, if not 50, and dissecting and going through that takes the army that we have back here, and
nuts.
So
yeah, definitely. Two more radio questions. I'll start with this one first. I've been saying this for a long time, right? We've worked in radio for a long time, and because I watch technology very strong, and I've seen the disruptions in other industries, the print industry has taken the hardest disruption.
Yeah. TV too.
TV's been taking a hit as late. Netflix has been a big disruptor. Hulu's getting better. Disney Plus is about to drop. The cable companies are switching their packages to a la carte. But radio has been, in the last, I'd say 3 years, it's been affected. I've definitely, since I've been here at Hot 97 in 1997, watched it go from any radio in New York City in an urban setting was switched to 97.1.
Right.
So you could drive down a block and catch a stereo effect because this Stoop's playing it, my car's playing it, that Stoop's playing it. Yeah. And now it's, I do hear, like when I hear a radio signal coming out of anything, I pay attention more now to it.
Sure, because you want to see
what's going on, who's playing it, why they're playing it, things like that. But the constant has been the car. Mm-hmm. And so radios are stronger than ever in the car. And I know even with me saying that radio has been affected, radio is still super strong. People, I know it's been a thing where people are, radio's dead. No, radio is far from dead.
Especially people that listen to podcasts. Like there's a group of people that listen to podcasts that and they will agree with you saying, oh, radio is, it's ancient or whatever. But the reality is, radio, it's... My oldest son is 28, and sorry, my stomach is growling.
I'm sorry, I'm keeping you too long.
Apologize. No, it's fine. When he years ago, I want to say, I don't know, 10 years ago, whatever. We got him an old. He still has it. We got him an old Chevy SUV, or it's a GMC or whatever. Anyways, he put a stereo system in. Back then, you had the aux port.
Yeah.
You know, so you'd get the mini jack,
3.5 millimeter jack
into whatever, and he says, "Dad, that's it for radio for me.
I'm aux cord.
I don't, I'm aux cord, and then I have a 20 disc CD changer in the back, and it plays MP3. So that's it. I'm done with radio. I'm here like, well, motherfucker, that shit's paying for your fucking food, but whatever. So anyway, so he's and I do voice work for other radio stations or whatever, and he calls me. I landed the station in the market where he lives, and he says, "Dad, I heard your voice on the radio." And I go, "You listen to radio?" He goes, "Stop it, Dad, stop it," and whatever. So I guess what I'm trying to say with that story is, it's people consume radio, they don't even know, because it's because it's so easy.
Yeah,
it's easy. It's a daily curated playlist and we take songs out and bring songs in, and I got to tell you, I have I don't even know how many playlists I have on my phone, but I guarantee you that the very first one is probably still there. And it's like, it's cool for, like,
people by nature
are contrarians.
They kind of want to be told what to listen to.
Well,
in a sense, like, not told, but
they want to know. Here's what I think. I think they want to know what their peers think. I think they want. It's not that they want to be told or want to be guided. They want to confirm that what they like is, like, for example, and as you get older, it starts meaning less and less. You know, it's like when, it's like a piece of clothing. Like, notice that the older people get, the less fucks they give about brands or whatever. Because because you get comfortable with yourself, and like, there's other things that are important in life. And when it comes to music, and especially hip hop, like, you want to make sure that the shit you like is the shit that everybody likes.
Yeah, facts.
It's like, well, how many views does it have? How many,
Music is very social.
Like,
yes.
What the fuck do you care if you like it? Who gives a fuck? If it has 0 views and you are the only person, like the person that's listening to this podcast, you're the only human being.
Well, we're going to get into some of that, because a lot of that is social behavior.
But you see what I'm saying? It's so the thing about radio is, it's a consensus. Like, if we're spinning the new Cardi B song and you're listening to it, that means that we've sat down, we've looked at the data, we've gotten feedback, and it's a song that's hot right now. What you don't want to do is, you don't want to be playing Bodak Yellow, 5 times a day, because it's not, you want to be playing Money from Cardi B, 5 times a day or whatever. And the new Cole, you want to hear that, not necessarily Neighbors, which is, So, does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. It's showing that you want to, like, as a radio listener, you want to make sure that you are listening to the most current thing, and you want to make sure that everybody else is listening to the most current thing. So the thing that's on the radio is usually the most current thing that everybody else is listening to. Definitely.
If there's a new pair of whatever, sneaker, like, you might get a different color than your homie or whatever, but you still want that fucking look. You still want that. Why? Because,
and you go to social media necessarily to confirm that, whereas you go to radio to confirm that.
Yeah, people inherently want to make sure that they're not wrong.
Right.
And it happens with, I mean, have you ever gone out with a woman and...
Several.
No, of course. But, I mean, that, and it's almost like you introduce you to your friends and you go, what do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I've been married for 25 plus years. I don't give a fuck what you think about my... Like, I fucking love her, and she's,
That's a good point.
You see what I'm saying? But, but when we were going out, and I introduced her to my friends, like, hey, she's hot, right?
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, you want to make sure that you have the the best thing for you.
You don't want to be wrong with anything. You want to be more right, and you want to be more in than out.
Facts. So before I get into some of these super techie questions, one last radio question.
Oh, there's super techie
Super
questions?
techie questions. Who you got, Flex or Rosenberg?
It depends for what. like to cook dinner, Flex. to get on a DJ set, I don't know, man. Flex fucking lights it up.
No, he's that guy. He's
Flex
definitely that guy.
I mean, now for deep conversation that makes you scratch your head, and maybe Rosenberg's one of those guys that
he might have a chance.
Yeah, like both of them are amazing for different things, but So
No, I was just trolling you a little bit. That's the team. We love everybody.
I love everybody. Doesn't mean I love anybody less. It's just
Facts.
So.
Facts. All right, so let's get into some of these techie questions. Right.
All right.
What do you feel like is the hot technology right now?
The hot technology right now, it's whatever you carry with you. It's whatever the new thing is for your smartphone. Really, I mean, like I used to laugh at face recognition. Are you an Apple guy?
I am. I do both, but
Right.
I do like iOS better.
Right. So like I thought, oh, this face recognition, what a. Now like my daughter has an older, like my old
Like
iPhone.
You're speaking of like the face unlock.
Yeah, the face unlock or whatever. So just that stuff that we know of. And what I get really excited about is the stuff, like I always think, like, what's the stuff that, like we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
like what's the stuff that
What's
the
not
military
even
is
out
using
yet, yeah.
that's not, that some scientists came up with and
Yeah.
they offed them like
What's
in a
the new
movie because,
microwave? Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean.
Because some people may not know, but the microwave was developed by the military
Of
and
course
held
it
on
was.
to the military for a very
yeah.
long time before it hit the
Cellular.
consumer public.
Cellular.
A lot of
Absolutely.
popular, the internet, a lot of popular
Absolutely.
applications. We use for
I'm
military.
looking forward to the day where Wi-Fi is as common and free as radio signals, and speed is quick.
Google's
And
working on it.
yeah, they're working on it. They're not there yet, but I mean that's a technology I'm really excited.
Right.
And I know that 5G it takes a step into that direction.
They're saying it that some of the carriers are saying 5G, but they did the same thing with 4G, where
Yeah.
it was an enhanced 3G, and it's just an enhanced. But if 5G is on the way, it's just not here yet.
It's to get people to spend money.
Yeah, facts. It's consumer. Give me your take on AI, artificial intelligence.
I mean, I know that that's kind of where things are right now, and it's like everything, it has to be perfected. Like
Yeah.
there's things that we take for granted now that simply didn't work in their inception, and just to be able to say, Siri or Alexa or whatever it is, and have them do it. Like I think that right now it's a little too cool for the room. Mm-hmm. Somebody was telling me about a smart microwave that some company was very excited about because it literally counted how many times you did popcorn, and it would tell you like, hey, notice that you've done 9 bags of popcorn.
Okay.
Would you're running low. Have you ordered yet? And press this button or whatever.
Might
And
be Samsung. They're heavy on that.
right. So I mean, like
They have a cool fridge that I like. That'll tell you it has cameras in the fridge, and
it tells you when you're running
to
low
order
on
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Does it tell you like when shit hasn't been used? Like there's shit behind the fridge.
It'll tell you when stuff is expired.
Oof.
It keeps track of all
But
of
then
that.
the problem
It's
is you have to
pretty
clean
cool.
that shit out because the camera's calling you out.
Yes.
So it's not artificial intelligence like your mom is there.
Right.
Saying, clean out your fridge and shit. Like, dude, everybody has that piece of something in the fridge that's just funky.
Bad. Yeah. Facts. Do you trust robots? This is a two-parter, right? Now bear with me. Do you trust robots? And then do you think sex dolls will take over brothels?
I think sex dolls will, if they're not a thing, I think because there's, like, dude, we're fucking weird.
Yeah.
You have, I'm sure, some shit that you like that's weird. I have some shit that, and everybody does. And I'm sure that there's going to be something, just even out of curiosity, if, and as things feel more real and as things communicate, like there's lonely people out there.
Yeah, facts.
Like radio, in its inception, and in the start, it was about accompaniment and keeping people, like, dude, it's like, the cat person thing is a real thing. It's like there's lonely people. So I think that there's, and it's like plasma TVs. It's like probably what costed you $25,000 in 1992 for a tiny. Right. And so if they're mass produced or whatever, like,
but they look really real. And my thing is, they're a shell right now. They're just the body for you to have that companionship in the bedroom. But at some point, the skeleton will be a robot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
then it will be an alive type situation, and that will change the scope of how people view it.
I think that it would be, if we were honest as a society in terms of like we seek other people's approval more than we like to admit.
Facts.
And look, sometimes there's people that rather be next to somebody they don't necessarily love or like, or that beats them up, or that smells like shit. I don't know,
just
whatever.
So they have
just so they're not alone.
Yeah.
Like that's a real thing. So I think that, and in terms of robots, not the robot like, in Will Smith's I, Robot or whatever, but I remember I used to do a lot of flying when I worked with my former company, and with the company before that, I used to travel quite a bit to New York and LA, and I would do this trip frequently.
Right.
And I remember on a couple of occasions where the pilot said, and this is years ago, if you enjoyed the smooth landing, that was our auto landing software, whatever.
Wow.
Every now and then we have to test it, and and imagine the times that a plane has landed that they haven't told you.
Right.
Now, was the pilot fucking with us? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe there truly is a system that assists in landing the plane. So that's not a robot per se in a physical looking body, but it's a robotic system that's controlling shit.
It's non-man.
It's non-manned, exactly. So instead of having 10 fingers and 10 toes, it has 1,000 fingers and 1,000 different things that's controlling it. It has a brain that's telling it what to do depending on air pressure and speed and terrain and whatever. So now do I believe that there will be like robots walking up and down the street? Like, I don't know. Do I believe that robotic procedures are going to take more and more jobs? Sure, they've done it so far.
Right.
Like the assembly line used to be human beings putting shit together. Now it's a lot of it is.
Well, my next question is, how do you feel about automation? But then, as you were saying that, I kind of want to, like, you watched Terminator.
Sure.
Do you think Skynet
Several
is a possibility?
Where a computer becomes self-aware and declares war on humans because we're destroying Earth or whatever? I don't know.
Elon Musk had put out a statement saying that AI and robots will be the end of humanity.
Look, and he's a very smart guy, and he's much more versed on. So if Elon Musk said it, and whatever I'm about to say, put a lot more value into what he's saying, because that's just not my business. But there's good people and bad people in the world, and everything in between. There's really bad people, and there's really great people, and everything in between, I might say. When you build something, it's unless a chip or something is bad, or unless it's being, artificial intelligence means it learns.
Right.
So it depends what it's being taught. So if you get there's religious groups that there's some people that make it that it's one bad apple that ruins the whole batch or whatever. So
Right.
could one computer, one robot,
Go
whatever,
AWOL
go
and-
AWOL. It's just because. And then going back to the religion thing, I just want to clear it up because it's such a touchy subject.
Yes.
Like every religion tells you to love, and to be kind, and whatever. And there's some people that take it like it means something totally different.
Right,
and It's not only one religion or the other. It's like there's shit like that in every religion.
That's a fact.
So you got to think about it's all going to depend on how artificial intelligence learns and who's teaching and what they
Yeah. Have you ever seen Ex Machina?
Yes. Hold on a second. Is it the one with
It's the one where they're like in a secluded place and they're
that the
doing
kid
it.
wins the contest
Yes,
to go
and-
see, and it's the guy that does the Star Wars. He's the pilot. The guy that creates is the pilot. Poe, whatever.
Is that Poe? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And he wins the contest and he goes.
But it's not really a contest.
It-
It's
it was-
like
it was set up-
it's an experiment to
Right,
see if he
to
can
s-
fall in love. Yeah,
to see if there's a real test to see
Yeah.
if the AI is really
Yeah.
AI. The way the AI learned was really
yeah.
taking Google and learning the behaviors, not what was being Googled per se, but how people were Googling.
Yeah.
It learned human behavior from how people were Googling.
Yeah.
And it became
Aware. And-
but then that's what kind
and
of gave
applied
it the
it.
danger of it, like
Yeah, but what this machine wanted was freedom,
yes,
right? And inherently, that's what we all want.
Correct.
We want to be free. We don't want to be. We don't want to answer to anybody or be held. And I mean, this machine was being held in a cage,
Right.
and being told what to do.
Right.
The cage was a pretty cage, but still a cage nonetheless.
right. Which was appropriate when it was a machine, but once it became self-aware,
Right.
it
So
wasn't appropriate.
the thing is, the foundation of what that machine became aware of, that I could be, it was happiness, and freedom equals happiness because you're free to do whatever you want, which is kind of weird because we just had the conversation of we're pretty free-willed in the United States, yet we will be with somebody we don't necessarily
Right.
care for too much to not be alone.
Right.
So that conundrum is going to be very interesting to see
How it
plays out.
Yeah. Okay. How do you feel about automation? Would you get into an Uber with no driver?
No, hell fuck no. No, there's no way.
So in 10 years, and it seems as though it's perfected, you wouldn't get in an Uber with no driver.
Would you get into a plane with no pilot?
You know, of course, at first it's like, hell no. But then if you think about it, right, there's probably many times I've gotten onto a plane with a pilot that was blasted out of his mind, drunk or high on drugs or something. And
Yeah.
his co-pilot and the automation of it, and
Yeah, got you to
it
where
got
you were
me to where I
going
needed to be
safely.
safely without realizing that I was actually in danger. So I don't know.
There was a news story that just came out, maybe yesterday. And I go through news like crazy, so I can't tell you which
Right.
website it was because I'm always trying to collect information for
Right.
And there was this guy that was in his self-driving, I think it was a Tesla, and he was asleep on the road to Vegas.
Yeah, I've seen.
You saw that?
I've seen several videos like that.
Yo,
Where
that
they-
shit is-
with the chair all the
that's
way
scary.
back, and they're dead sleep.
Like, that's scary.
And they have somebody in the car with them that is nervous, and they're like, "Yo,
Yeah, I mean that's so. Then as pot becomes more and more legal, as people so now it's like, oh, I could be bombed out of my mind, get in the car and tell her
Yeah.
where to go or whatever, and then I don't know, man. I don't at least not yet.
yeah,
I just
give it some
don't.
time, maybe."
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to
So
I don't know.
Yeah, because like we watch the internet and technology take over the world in the last 10 years. Where in the last 10 years, if you were born...
digital technology.
Well, digital
and
technology.
the communication, that's really what's taken off.
Correct.
Because, think about it. There was a time where it's like, well, you don't need mail anymore because now you have email. Right. Now email's considered... like, oh, dude, if you really want to get me quickly, text me.
Right, right.
So the communication thing is what's really exploded, and people being able to. People have a video camera on their person.
Right.
That's why we're able to see shit.
Yeah.
And the outlets are not able to lie as much because you have like user generated proof of things.
Right.
People that get shot by cops and they're being live streamed on social media or whatever. Right. Like that shit would have never.
Right.
So the communication, like that's really taken off.
Right. And the behavior of that communication.
Well, expecting to be able to use it and be connected and whatever. That's the behavior, the expectation.
Right. And that's what's changed in the last 10 years. But so in 10 years from now, and Uber has stated its case and everybody's used to it, then maybe, but they're getting ready to launch a whole new program, which is little planes on top of buildings taking you from Manhattan to Jersey or Manhattan to Brooklyn or Manhattan to Bronx. That's their next service that they're actually getting to launch in like the next year or two. It's going to be crazy.
That's interesting.
What do you think that there's room? What do you think the next innovative thing could be?
Dude, if I knew that. We could buy those $1 million speakers, right?
Facts.
People like convenience, people like quick, and people, it's unfortunately the next big thing is going to be something you never thought you needed, but when it's out, you can't live without. I'll give you a great example, Instagram. Instagram wasn't there when you were born. But now you're always on the gram. You always want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So again, the next big innovative thing is something that we don't know that we want or need, quote unquote need, as much as we will once it's out. And that's of course very hard to. That's what makes you a billionaire.
Facts.
Facts. Being able to figure that out.
A couple quick lightning questions, right? AirPods versus Sony headphones.
AirPods are the
Apple
little
ones,
thing.
the wireless.
I don't own a pair, so I don't. My ear,
sure.
the way my ear works is like the regular.
The way your hearing's set up.
No. The way that my ear canal is like the white headphones, like they fall off
like
easy.
Fall off.
So I know that if I had a pair of those wireless joints, they'd get lost quick.
Gotcha.
So
Sony.
Yeah.
All right. iOS or Android?
Oh, iOS.
iOS. Mac OS or Windows?
Mac OS.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Would you give your if you had a helpless child, would you give a helpless child a Samsung?
Yeah, anything that could help that helpless child, of course.
Except for they have that stigma of being dangerous because of explodingness.
Is that still a thing? Or did they not catch that?
They did, but then the problem is it's a thing with ion lithium batteries as a whole. They haven't fixed battery technology enough that it will never happen again.
Right. And by the way, it's funny you should say that because that's one of the things I was going to tell you about the self-driving car or whatever. Gear goes bad, and then who do you, and so, batteries explode and things aren't soldered properly and,
Yeah. That's facts.
So,
well, look, I have a ton of other questions that are really about
the camera guy's gonna fall asleep.
Yeah, they're really about social media and the behaviors and things like that. We touched on some of it, but Pio, I want to wrap now, but I want you to come back and we do this again because
Anytime.
You are very smart and I love picking.
Oh man, thank you for that. I don't hear that often.
Yes, you'll be back. This has been fnTECHIES, and thank you very much. Make sure you go to Pio's Instagram page. His personal Instagram page is Pio Ferro. We'll put links, and his audio file,
the geek stuff.
His geek stuff is home_and_pro_audio.
Yeah, Home and Pro Audio.
Home and Pro Audio. Yeah. So check that out. He's updating us with some of the best devices you need to put a system together.
Well, kind of, sort of. It's shit that I like.
It's shit that you like, but if they're paying attention, which they should be, then it's something that they could use.
You know what's really cool about that is a lot of, like people will hit you and say, hey, what do you think of this? Hey, what do you think of that? And again, it's all that, it's that, like I'll give you advice, but it's like what I think of it. But I always, the caveat is always, dude, but you got to like it.
Yeah.
Just because I like this doesn't mean.
That's a fact.
So
at the end of the day, that's great advice to exit on. At the end of the day, you have to like it.
You have to be happy.
You have to function with it. fnTECHIES.